Welcome to the Prostate Cancer Patient Empowerment Program, PC-PEP podcast episode number 1. We're excited to launch our very first episode. Whether you've been diagnosed with prostate cancer or currently undergoing treatment or are navigating life post-diagnosis, this podcast is for you. I'm one of your hosts. I'm a scientist whose work is about creating evidence-based interventions with the engagements of patients to help cancer patients lead better quality lives. I'm Gabriela, Ilie, and co-hosting with me in next episodes is our program's co-founder, Dr. Rutledge, a prostate cancer oncologist from Nova Scotia, who's also treating other sites, breast and pediatric cancers, and we're both from Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. Together, Rob and I develop PC-PEP and other cancer types empowerment programs through listening to patients, incorporating their feedback into the strategies adopted by diving deep into research to create a program designed to empower people and their partners with practical, evidence-based strategies that help them reclaim their life after a prostate cancer diagnosis. We want people to feel confident, informed, and in control because we believe you should not let a prostate cancer diagnosis ruin your life and spoil your precious moments with the people you love most. So we're excited to introduce this podcast to you. Extending from Canada to the far reaches of the globe, including our New Zealand site led by Peter Dickens from the Prostate Cancer Foundation of New Zealand, PC-PEP reaches out to men and their partners with insights, a little bit of wit and touch of humor, and practical guidance to enhance your prostate cancer journey. In this inaugural episode, we introduce John Moody from South New Zealand, who shares his heartfelt journey with his wife through his diagnosis and their choice of active surveillance, a path that suits them well. This episode is full of inspiration, practical advice, and first-hand accounts of how the PC-PEP program can truly transform lives. John participated in our comprehensive 6-month PC-PEP program, which empowered him to prioritize his happiness and well-being, resulting in a stable decrease in his PSA levels even after completing the program. For John, opting for active surveillance and focusing on self-care has enabled him to live fully, unburdened by constant PSA checkups. It's a truly uplifting story that reminds us of the power of making informed, empowering choices even in challenging times. Each episode will dive into real stories that showcase how individuals reclaim their power and zest for life. Our program goes beyond symptom management. It's about fostering real, transformative change. These podcasts talk about 8 essential areas of the program: pelvic floor physiotherapy, intimacy and sexuality, nutrition with simple, budget-friendly, plant-based recipes that Rob and I present weekly from our kitchen, social support, aerobic and strength training, attitudinal healing, scientific updates, and stress management using a heart rate variability and coherence tool. These elements collectively contribute to enhancing both mental and physical health. Join us as we explore these compelling narratives and discover how you too can be part of this transformative journey. Together, we're not just tackling prostate cancer, we're changing how it's addressed globally. For those interested in joining the PC-PEP program, it is available for free to anyone worldwide who speaks English. Learn more by visiting us at pcpep.org. For those who prefer not to participate in a research trial, you can access our cancer empowerment program outside of research at cancerpep.com. Welcome, everyone. John, thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me about this. I know that this might be just a conversation, but for some people, actually, this might be quite helpful. And so I'm really delighted to be talking to you today. Thank you.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for asking.
And so I know now you live in the south of New Zealand.
Correct. Top of the south. That's right. Halfway between the top and the bottom. So
it's beautiful there. It's absolutely beautiful. Been to New Zealand. It's very close to my heart. The first time I went there and I started shopping for houses, we were on the bike, as I remember. And instead of looking at the surroundings, I kept saying, sweetheart, we could actually live there. We could live there.
That doesn't sound too dissimilar to our experience when we came here in the beginning of 2000. And part of our journey was in looking around, actually looking in some of the real estate agent windows and thinking, oh, actually properties here are pretty good by comparison. We didn't know at the time the exchange rate to the UK pound was very good. But anyway, so it meant that when we did come here, everything seemed cheap for quite a while. But
yeah, and you're there now. So, well, thank you so much again for agreeing to do this. I know that you were a prostate cancer patient empowerment program, PC-PEP participant. So this is at the end of the program for you. And I know you will be with us and continue to attend the monthly video conferences and maybe even help some men that want to join the program from New Zealand by telling them your experience, or if they need anything in terms of just understanding how things go. So that's very kind of you. And I want to start our conversation today just to ask you, just to put things in perspective. So when did you hear about prostate cancer from your doctor? What was happening in your life at that time? What was that experience like for you and your wife?
Okay. So I was originally diagnosed in November of 2022 with a Gleason score 7 prostate cancer. Basically, I'd had a bit of a journey with prostate cancer already before I was diagnosed, in that I have a large family. I have 5 brothers and a half brother, and my oldest brother had been diagnosed 10 years earlier with prostate cancer, and had made the decision at that stage to have a prostatectomy. And it turned out that that was a good thing for him, because when they did the biopsy of that, it was actually more aggressive than they had previously thought. So I'd been regularly getting my PSA checked and on an annual basis, and I just recently changed to a new doctor who had seen that the trend was in the wrong direction. And had suggested, even though it was below the normal PSA level of 4 for a threshold here, he'd suggested that I have a biopsy. I've since found out that really normally one should probably have an MRI before a biopsy, but I knew nothing about prostate cancer at this stage. So I went along for a biopsy. I saw a urologist beforehand who conducted the biopsy, and he was explaining that even with my brother's diagnosis and prostate issue, the chances of me having prostate cancer was probably only about 6%. So we felt quite relaxed to book a holiday to the UK. And think a non-refundable holiday to the UK, and think that that was all fine, because it was only 6% chance.
Right.
I had the biopsy, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody to have done on a whim. And the results of that then came through a few weeks later.
Right.
We had a session then with the urologist, who spent 5 or 10 minutes basically talking to us about unimportant cancers. And so the assumption that I had at that stage was that, okay, well, I haven't got prostate cancer as such, but I have got an unimportant one, which he explained meant that I would be living with it and not dying of it. However, he then, after spending 5 or 10 minutes talking about unimportant cancers, then proceeded to tell us that actually that's not what you've got. You have an important cancer. So at that stage, we were quite, both my wife and I were very taken aback, and a little bit, as people say, you don't necessarily hear and process all that's said after that. You've just had this sort of cancer diagnosis. But I did pick up enough to understand that it was a Gleason 7, and that was at the lowest level. It was a 3+4 7. It was the lowest level of cancer. But that his recommendation at that stage was to have a prostatectomy. He then went on to explain that we could investigate the idea of having radiation treatment, and asked if we wanted to have an appointment with a radiation oncologist. And I thought, well, it's always good to have second opinions and somebody else's perspective. So we did that. The radiation oncologist, unsurprisingly, recommended that radiation treatment would be a better option for me than a prostatectomy. At this same stage, because I'd been referred to the Cancer Society in Nelson, they then put me in touch with a prostate cancer support group that was run every month. And in going along to that and talking about my story, and in doing my own research over the following few weeks, I'd come across this idea of active surveillance, and it had been briefly mentioned by the urologist, but it hadn't really been recommended. He'd said, this is an option, but I wouldn't recommend that for you because we can treat it and we can cure it and you can get on with your life.
Right.
He spent a little bit of time, in fairness, talking about the side effects. And it was really the side effects that was one of the big issues for me in terms of incontinence, impotence, potential bowel issues, and so on going forward. So I decided to do, say, my own research. And then in joining this men's group, it was really then that the idea of maybe pursuing an active surveillance route might be a realistic option. I then went back to the radiation oncologist and had a very lengthy set of questions to ask of him, including which were questions like, well, if I decide to go down the active surveillance route, what would that mean if my PSA levels started to increase? Would I have a greater risk? And the assessment at that stage was that the risk would not be significantly greater to it having metastasized and so on. So I felt reasonably comfortable with that. And particularly as I was finding out that in other parts of the world, particularly in the States, that an active surveillance for a 3+4 and even 4+3 Gleason scores are now being considered. So anyway, that was a lot to process in a relatively short period of time. A bit of a funny story. Coming out of the treatment, the initial meeting and the initial prognosis and diagnosis was my wife and I walking out in a little bit of a fug, and thinking, that was not what we were expecting. And the nurse who was taking us out said that we looked a little bit shell-shocked, and we explained that that wasn't what we were expecting, having thought there was only a 6% chance of diagnosis. She then turned around and said, well, don't let it spoil your day, which was
there's God talking to you.
A remarkable comment to my mind at the time. Yeah. And my wife and I both checked with each other. Did she just say, don't let that spoil yes, that's what she said. And so it's been useful to us now in hindsight, because when we have some bad stuff happening, we'll turn around to each other and say, well, don't let it spoil your day. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is such a good piece of advice. I will remember that indeed. Yeah, isn't beautiful, isn't it? It's like God talking to you. It's like, hey, one step at a time. Yeah, you can't let this spoil all the present moments. How beautiful is that? So what did you do?
So, having gone back to the radiation oncologist and having had this sort of confirmation, I suppose, reaffirmation that this actually wasn't a reckless route to go down. And I should say that my wife was very uncomfortable at this stage. I have a daughter who's a doctor, and she was also uncomfortable about the idea that I've had two specialists recommending initially, at least, that I have treatment, and that I was deciding not to take that route. But then having gone through that and having had the radiation oncologist then effectively saying, actually, this wasn't a reckless thing to do. And then it gave me the reassurance, I guess, that this was something I could explore. So I got really quite heavily involved with the local group, and I joined something in New Zealand, at least, called a ProstFit class, which was a prostate fitness class designed specifically for men with prostate cancer. I'd also been doing a lot of my own research, which was suggesting that I needed to do more by way of physical activity and exercise. I should say also that we've been on a bit of a journey already. My wife has ME/CFS, so chronic fatigue syndrome, and so as a result of that, over the last 20 years, we've been on quite a long journey, health journey,
trying to figure out what's the best.
Trying to figure out what to do for her,
lifestyle.
but the process, trying to, and looking at this from quite a holistic perspective,
approach,
looking at a lot of different doctors, a lot of different medical practitioners from a lot of different areas. And what seemed to be happening was we were getting the same messages coming through from pretty much everyone. It didn't matter. We were looking into dementia at one stage for another reason. And you're getting the same messages from dementia specialists as you were getting from microbiome specialists, as you're getting from GP practitioners who were sort of looking to realize the best that they could do, trying to understand the best that they could do for their patients. So those messages were that we really need to focus on some core areas, need to focus on exercise, diet, our own reducing our stress levels, trying to improve on sleep, social interaction, and it seemed that the same messages coming from all these different angles, there had to be something to it. I should also say at this stage that when I spoke to my urologist about it, he poo-pooed the idea of diet having any impact on prostate cancer. So,
which is very curious, right? Because it stands to reason that our inflammation, if our gut is inflamed, that's going to have some effect, and it will take a form at some level or another in the body, and then how we feel, right? It's very interesting. So let me see if I got this straight. You get diagnosed, and then have you been on active surveillance since? Did I get that right? I got that right. Yeah.
So
okay.
I've been monitoring. Every 3 months, I go in for my PSA test. I have had a biopsy, a follow-up biopsy a year later. I did have an MRI scan as well after the initial biopsy. And the MRI seemed to be confirming what the biopsy had picked up on, which was a small core in one area of the prostate. The follow-up biopsy actually reduced my Gleason score down to a 6, and the urologist was at pains to explain that didn't mean that I was getting rid of the cancer. It just meant that where the biopsies were taken from hadn't necessarily hit the area of the cancer that the previous biopsy had gone in. I actually like to look at this as being something. I'm actually looking to try and do what I can to try and reduce the cancer and even to eliminate it altogether. Whether or not that's unrealistic, I know that it has happened for some people. So
so why not you? Exactly. That's right. Absolutely. Nothing wrong thinking that way. So what was that like for you looking back? How did the active surveillance and this regular checkup affect your mental and emotional well-being at the time when you entered the PC-PEP program? And of course, I would like to know, how did you come across the PC-PEP program, and what made you decide to say, yes, I want to try this?
Yeah. Okay, well, there's quite a lot to unpack there, but
No.
I should say that my journey's been an interesting one. I mentioned about my wife having ME/CFS. Unfortunately, I have three children as well, all with autoimmune issues. So my role within the family was to be the healthy one. So finally, suddenly finding myself in a position where I'm not the healthy one either made me feel quite disempowered and quite. I found
Mhm.
it quite hard to get my head around the fact that I had this now hanging over me, and I don't know if that was one of the things that made me think about active surveillance or made me focus more on that. Um, but yeah, it was quite a tough thing to get my head around because, as I say, I was the one who was used to being the well one. Um, so the process from there was, as I said, trying to sort of focus on my on doing what I could to be as healthy as I could, and in the process of that, having joined this local group, I was getting various emails through about things that might help.
Yeah.
Included within which was one from the Prostate Cancer Foundation of New Zealand talking about the PC-PEP program. And when I looked at it, I thought that sounds really interesting. I said that I would be interested to join up, and then I heard nothing about it for about 4 or 5 months. And so I thought nothing of it. And then all of a sudden, I got a message through saying that did I want to consider this again? I thought, well, yes. I was keen still to follow up. I had things hadn't changed, but I wasn't sure at that stage what was actually involved because it was just an understanding that there was this research program being conducted from Canada. And so I thought, well, yes, I'm interested to find out more, see if this could help me, but also to see if the research could be beneficial to future prostate cancer patients. So I then had this an interview with Cody from your program, and he explained really a bit more of the mechanics of it and what I could expect from it and what was expected of me from it. Um, I think that because I'd already been on quite a journey of my own, as I mentioned, with regards to health, which had been particularly focused on diet and a little bit on exercise, but not so much on exercise, but particularly on diet. That I actually thought that some of the elements of the program might preclude me from it because I'm already doing a lot of what you're talking about. But Cody explained that no, that was not a barrier to my joining. But I then thought, well, actually, the fact that I'm already on board with a lot of this may make the process easier for me as well. So the commitment didn't seem to be as significant, or the what it was asking of me maybe it wouldn't be as significant as some other people may feel. So yeah, I had the interview and thought this is actually a really good idea. It hopefully could be beneficial to me, but I'm always interested in the idea of research and doing what we can to try and further the case for other people.
When did you join the PC-PEP program?
So I joined
More or less.
at the
Yeah.
beginning of 2024. I think it was January of 2024. So I completed it in July of this year.
Can you share what were your experiences during the program? What parts of it really stood out for you?
As I said before, I was already feeling that some of the things I was doing, but the things that I really hadn't given as much focus to was whilst I've been doing some exercise, I hadn't done as much. I hadn't been doing the strength exercises that the PC-PEP program had recommended. And actually, while I was on the program, I started doing a home workout program as well, which was So rather than just doing the 2 sessions, I was doing some more home workout strength exercises. The Kegels or pelvic floor exercises had been touched on with my ProstFit classes, but it would be we'd look at doing it for maybe a minute during the class, and so I had this understanding that maybe this was beneficial, but certainly not to the same level and extent as on the PC-PEP program. Meditation is something that I've say flirted with, but I've actually utilized on occasions over the years, but I hadn't got into a regular state of meditating. And so the HRV monitor and the coherence work that I've been doing over that 6 months, I do think was something that I really wouldn't have done without the program, and has been beneficial. And I have now joined a follow-up mindfulness meditation course, and looking to continue on with that as a program. The one thing I would say that I regret is not joining up at the time to the buddy program. I thought, well, I've got my PC group that I meet with once a month. I've got my ProstFit group that I meet with every week. This is quite a commitment to join this as a program. Maybe I don't need that as well, because I don't want my life to be defined by prostate cancer. So it was, but I do think that in hindsight, having someone who's going through the program with you would have been a beneficial to me, just because that way you've got that ability to be able to feed off each other and to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, and encouragement, which I think would have probably been beneficial in hindsight.
So I understand that you had already, so this is good. It seemed like you had so much wonderful support around you. And then I do remember very clearly, and still we see you every month in the monthly video conferences. So what I would like to know about that, tell us a little bit about your experience with those monthly video conferences. How important were they in, say, helping you feel connected with others going through the same thing?
Absolutely, and I would say, yeah, they have definitely made me feel that sense of connection. I've got that connection here in New Zealand, but actually having that with a group of people who've gone through or are going through the same program works on another level altogether. And one of the things that I've found really beneficial from the monthly meetings is the opportunity basically to have some little breakout groups and to discuss what's going on in our individual lives, but also the fact that you focus each month on a topic area. And I've used on quite a number of occasions, I've used the information that's come out of those meetings. There's one in particular, which was where Rob and you were talking about diet. And we were talking about meat, and there was a chap on there who had talked about how he and his husband were both big meat eaters, and that they weren't going to give up meat, but that the meat that they were having was homegrown. It was organic, therefore. And the question I think that it was put to you and Rob is, in that instance, if I'm eating my own meat and it's organic, and is that going to be as bad for me? And the answer that you gave at the time, which makes sense to me, is you don't know, but that you suspect that actually having quality organic meat is likely to have certainly less of an impact. And that probably what's happening for most people the reason why we need to avoid meat is because of the hormones, the sprays, the chemicals that all of the animals are subjected to. And that resonates with me. I've now adopted a largely meat-free, plant-based diet, but I do have fish. I do have eggs, but very irregularly.
In moderation.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to have a lot more eggs, and then I understand about I've read that choline is maybe a contributory factor for prostate cancer. I think that, will I never eat meat again? Probably not. If I go out to somewhere and someone's made us a meal and they're unaware, then I'll eat the meat that they've given me. But as a choice now, when I go out to a restaurant, meat is never one of my options. And I understand that I have a choice in that matter. And I also think the one thing I should say is that, and I think one of the things that you and Rob have stressed is that you're not trying to make everybody a vegan. Right. All of us need to be on our own individual journeys. And big meat eaters, then if we can just reduce the amount of meat we're eating, the likelihood is that is going to be beneficial to our bodies. So whatever stage of the journey we're on, doing something is going to be better than doing nothing and maintaining the status quo, because it's the status quo that's got us to the place that we're now in. If we don't do anything, it's unlikely we're going to be able to change that.
Yeah. And ultra-processed foods also play a huge role, as we talk in the program, on gut inflammation and just overall inflammation. That's such an important thing to keep in mind. And back again to the chemicals. Are we eating food or are we eating chemicals? And the segue is eat food, mostly plants, not too much.
And it's the hard thing is without coming across wielding a big stick when you're talking to your children and others around you, is trying to quietly influence them to do the right things without necessarily belaboring the point to the stage where suddenly you have no friends left. Because
absolutely. Exactly. What was it like for you to see the canuts? Because we brought together the Kiwis and the canuts in the monthly video conferences. So I just want to know, how was that like for you? I know that we are very excited, and certainly the Kiwis were very excited to be together with the canuts and have those conversations. And it was lovely. It is lovely for Rob and I to see the heartfulness, the kindness, just the joy that everybody has to, bring something to the conversation that is meaningful to us, to all of us.
And I think what I find really fascinating from one point of view is that actually you don't. There's no divide. There's a few Brits that come in, I notice as well, on the monthly meeting. And actually, it doesn't matter whether you're in England, New Zealand, or Canada. We're all in the same boat. We're all going through we've all got different journeys. Everyone's journey is surprisingly different to everybody else's, but it's all the same. So there is this commonality to it. And so you may not be going through exactly what somebody else is going through. I haven't had a prostatectomy, but I've shared a lot of my story, which resonates with a lot of people that have gone through their own treatments. And it doesn't matter the fact that I've not gone through treatment. They have. They've got things which resonate with me, and so it's sort of we are all in this boat together.
Yeah. It's a wonderful community, and it's nice to see it grow globally and so well. It's been so rewarding to us all, and we are growing together. It is really a family. So tell me something. I do have to ask you, did you have any takeaways from the intimacy, the connection? Because we talked a lot about that, intimacy versus sexuality. How are we in relationship? Do we see the light? Do we see the lampshade? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I guess the intimacy one for me was quite fascinating. I had a conversation about this just a few days ago, because one of the things that I particularly recognized in completing the questionnaires each week where it asks you about different types of intimacy. And one of the questions was on self-intimacy. And how much do you sort of reflect on yourself and your journey and show love for yourself? And I thought, well, almost every week on that, I was writing none, or maybe one day, and realizing that actually I don't. I give. I like to think I give intimacy to other people, but actually I have very little time or energy that I focus on me. And I think that actually that's something that the program really brought to life, is the fact that I actually I need to spend more time actually working on myself. And that's not just in terms of the intimacy side of things, but it's also just in terms of just giving myself space to be me, outside of my wife, outside of my family, outside of the PC peppers. But actually, I need to make sure that actually I need to look after myself in a bit of similarly to the old oxygen mask on the aeroplane. If we're not looking after ourselves, then we're not going to be any good to anybody else. And I think that has been a real sort of takeout for me, that I need to become a little bit more selfish, maybe in some respects.
Yeah, it's very true. And I'm happy that this was a big takeaway for you, because it is important. It's hard to have anything left to give to another person unless you give it to yourself. You need to nurture and nourish your soul.
Absolutely.
And your mind and your heart.
And I think having now started the exercise program more, and doing a lot more aerobic exercise, which again was encouraged, as well as the strength training. I've got a really good physio here that I've been working with, and has now got me starting to run again after 30 years. So I've got a program that I'm doing, a biking exercise, a biking trail that I'm taking on at the end of the year with my eldest.
That's wonderful.
Just having goals to aim towards, to keep giving you motivation.
Yeah, and I was just about to ask you, actually, now that you finished the program, in what way do you feel the program changed you, both in terms of your health, in terms of your outlook on life?
Well, I think one thing I should say about that is that I had my PSA checks, as I said, I'm doing on a 3 monthly basis.
Yeah.
And my PSA level prior to starting the program was 5.95. So it had been gradually sort of creeping up from the 3.8 back in 2022 up to 5.95. Then halfway through the program, it had gone down to 3.23. So a drop of 35%. So, and I don't know what that's down to, but that certainly has given me a huge motivation to stick with the program. I had one just done a few weeks ago, and it had crept up to 3.44, so it had gone up 0.21. But in the scheme of things, as we know, the PSA can vary a lot anyway. What for me was reassuring by that is that the initial 3.23 was not an aberration. It's been being sustained. So that gives me the confidence to keep with the program, and the resilience really to resist the temptations that are all around us. To the extent where I can look at a cabinet full of pastries and just, I'm not tempted. My wife was having breakfast this morning and had some free-range organic bacon, and I resisted. And I didn't feel like I was resisting. I just felt I've got a choice, and actually I choose not to have it. So I think the program has helped me to continue feeling good about making those sorts of choices and not feeling guilty about it, not beating myself up about it, not feeling that I'm missing out, just feeling that ultimately I have a choice, and my choice is to do this now. And so I am sticking with most of what I've been doing on the program as well. My Kegels, I keep up, but whereas because I was having to report them, I was doing them very religiously. I now tend to find what I do is I'm going to get in the car. My go-to thing is sit down, and for the first 5-10 minutes of the car journey, I'll do my Kegels. And the Kegels, I should say, have helped as well in terms of the need to get up and pee at night has been drastically reduced, and to the extent where probably it's only happens once a week that I actually need to get up at all now. And I'm pretty convinced that that's the Kegels that have definitely contributed to that journey, as well as probably the other things that I've been doing.
This is so wonderful. I'm hearing you talk about this, and your personal results are so much in line with what we found scientifically when we looked at the data through a randomized clinical trial, and now in the phase 4 pan-Canadian international trial, the results are the same, and it's so rewarding to hear you talk about this. And we haven't talked before, so it's really nice to see that your results map very nicely onto the results that we find overall in the study. One more question, and it makes sense to me. I mean, you eat better, you decrease inflammation, your gut is healthier, your mind is healthier, oxidation is going down, you load on happy hormones, you're making mindful choices that are good for you, you're empowered, we activated your role in your own care. So of course the results really map that. And of course, you know that you're more than welcome to take the program at any time. You take it from day one. We're very happy to do that for you at any point if you wanted to do that. I do want to ask you, John, if someone was to start their cancer journey and was considering, from New Zealand or anywhere for that matter, was considering joining PC-PEP, what advice would you give them?
Interestingly, I gave a talk to my local group about the PC-PEP. Well, it was about my journey because of the fact I'd seen such good results. I was asked by the chap who runs it to give a talk to the group. And part of that talk was about the PC-PEP program. And basically what I was doing, I had mentioned it before to them, but I hadn't gone into the depth that I did at this second talk. And I think I did the PC-PEP program a bit of a disservice the first time round, because it was a very brief outline of what was involved. And I talked about the fact that you needed to make a commitment to the program of probably around about an hour a day. And I think that without sort of qualifying that, I'd sort of put a lot of, an hour a day, that's a lot. But whereas I qualified that by saying that that's depends on how rigidly you want to follow the program, but also it's an hour a day where you're investing in yourself. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier on about realizing that I was giving to other people, and I now need to start looking after myself, because that's going to be the way in which I can move on into the future and be helpful going forward. So I guess what I would say to anybody who's looking to join the program is, yes, there is a commitment to it, but that's a commitment to change. It's a commitment to being a better version of you. And one of the things I said to my group is, do I know that this is absolutely working? No, I don't. It seems to be that the evidence seems to be supporting that, at least from my PSA results. But whatever the program is doing for me, it's got to be good, because we know that diet and exercise and social interaction and reduction of stress, all of these things are good for our bodies, regardless of whether we have prostate cancer or not. So we need to be looking after ourselves better anyway. And so I would really encourage people to join the PC-PEP program, because not only are you getting the benefit of that, you're also getting the opportunity to be able to interact with people who are going through a similar journey, and to be able to find that support. And I would encourage people to join the buddy system as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, John. What's next for you, John? What's next for you? What are you planning to do, and how are you planning to keep up the habits and lessons that you've learned from the program? I do hear loud and clear, and I'm just so happy to hear that you realize the importance of self-love, self-compassion, self-care. You are the head of your family. And yes, your wife and your kids are looking up to you, and our dads are very important to the center of the family. And so you see that it seems to me that you are planning to focus more on, without any guilt or any, on yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned about having this bike ride that I'm doing at the end of the year. I've just signed up for an adventure race, which is a 4-hour. You can do a 4, an 8, or a 12-hour version, and there's no way I'm doing any of the more significant ones. But I thought, again, with my eldest, that we're going to go, and we've signed up for doing one in 6 weeks' time. So there's another element of fitness program that I need to.
And bonding.
So I need to. I'm working on that. And I think that for me, it's really, I suppose I'd like to get to a stage where, and I think I'm there already to a large extent, where I'm more than aware of prostate cancer, but I don't want it to define my life. But it's become so influential in my life that it's made me make new choices. But I think those choices are going to be choices which are ultimately beneficial to me going forward. And what I want to do is more of the same, effectively. I want to continue on doing what I'm doing because it's working, and I'm feeling good on it. Yeah. And I'm hopefully quietly influencing those around me to be reflecting themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I've heard you say in this interview, this idea of an experience, is the experience that kept you going.
Absolutely. It's having that reinforcement is what sort of kept me going. Having that, it's interesting. You talk to some people who've had significant health issues and health events, and some of them would say that they're actually glad in hindsight that they've had it, because it's given them an opportunity to be able to reassess and to change their lives. Yeah. I can't say I'm actually glad from one point of view to have had this, but I do understand the mentality behind that that statement, and I do feel that I'm a better person on a number of levels for having gone through this experience. It's not something I would have wanted, but it's something that hasn't been as detrimental to me as normally as you'd expect when you have this, cancer diagnosis and you think your whole world's about to collapse. It's not, I'm very grateful that for me personally, it was picked up at a very early stage.
And like that nurse said, thank goodness that you didn't let it ruin your day. With resilience, beautiful, isn't it? With resilience and just keeping at it with love, with communication between you and your wife, with making right choices, with staying empowered and knowledgeable about what's happening, and having some compassion and some humility along the way. Look at where you are. What a beautiful journey, because active surveillance is an option. Remittance is an option. Why not you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're very happy to have you in the program. Love your attendance to the monthly video conferences. You made many friends in the program. We consider ourselves among them. It's beautiful. Please continue to come. And thank you so much for agreeing to be a mentor to men wanting to come in the program that may want to have a chat with one of their Kiwis to find out what is this program about.
Definitely one of my philosophies is that, when you get something given to you, then there is this need to pay forward, give back, and so on. I think so the program has given me a lot. So I think it's only right that I should do something by way of return to you and to Rob.
Thank you so much. And we will be in touch. You are part of the Facebook group as well, from what I know. So, and keep in touch anytime. And we look forward to seeing you in our monthly video conferences.
I'm not a regular Facebook attendee, I have to say. I have got a Facebook and I did sign up, but yeah, I'm not one of the. I'm a big avoider of social media by and large, but yeah, definitely the monthly meetings.
Perfect. See you. Thank you so much for doing this, John.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks, Gabriela.
And this concludes episode 1 of our podcast. For more information on our prostate cancer patient empowerment program, please visit PC-PEP.org. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, take care of yourselves and be well.